Double P Podcast is proud to present
the very first podcast you listen to after you watch
Y the Last Man. I'm Bubba, and with me as always is someone who's never tied a knot before. It's Catfish. Catfish, how are you doing?
I'm not going to tell you. As you said, I'm Catfish. I'm so happy to be back here with Triple B.
Triple B?
Yeah, Beta Boy Bubba.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, yeah. Listen,
Yeah?
he may be a beta boy, but there's no alpha boy right now. So beta boy is still looking pretty good.
Guys, we're going to be breaking down episode 7 of season 1 of Y the Last Man, entitled My Mother Saw a Monkey. In this episode, Kimberly uncovers a secret. 355 and Allison Mann reach an understanding. Yorick stumbles on a mysterious town where things are not what they seem. Catfish, we are 70% done with season 1. What is your rating for this episode, episode 7?
I'm going to give this one 7, what I like to call a double P's.
Wait, double P's?
Yeah, Pentagon pests. And of course, I'm talking about the moths.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about Kimberly. Sorry.
Oh.
Kimberly, the Pentagon pest, she's out there. She is causing trouble. She's got a plan, though, now. She's got a Pentagon plan, and that is, sounds to me like she is going to repopulate the world herself with Yorick. She's making all the sacrifices she has to make to keep things going. I'm going to say, Bubba, I think you poisoned me last week with all your talk about, hey, we're getting pretty close. We got to pick things up.
Oh, yeah?
I felt like this really slowed things down, and I'm not sure what it added to it. I have to say, the stop by at the town, which is full of women who were formerly in a women's prison,
Yep.
is straight out of the comic book.
Yes.
And so there's more to this story. They're still there. This sidetrack felt more like a sidetrack. And again, I know there's more to that story. If they follow that to the logical conclusion, it's going to be interesting, powerful, heartbreaking, all that kind of stuff. But it still felt like, I don't know, we still have, we kind of belabored the trust issues between the three of them. This was not my favorite episode.
Okay, well, that is interesting that I have poisoned I've poisoned you.
You poisoned me.
I apologize. But let me say that my rating is staying the same. I'm doing 8 triple Fs out of 10.
Oh, triple Fs?
Triple Fs is when they're former first ladies.
Ouch.
That's what she said when she landed. Ouch.
Oh, late ladies.
Oh, man. I remember this Ohio town section from the comic, Y the Last Man, which, spoiler alert, if you haven't been following along with us listeners, both Catfish and I read. We try to keep this spoiler-free, but we did read the comic series. And I remember I actually liked this section of the comic. And I found this section of the show really, just likable. Like, this is really fun. Now, my double C, constant complaint about, hey, are we gonna start cooking with gas? Are we gonna start boiling this pot which we're watching boil? And so it's still there. But I'm going to try, at least at this beginning part of our podcast, to focus on the positive stuff. There is great acting. There is crackling dialogue with ice-cold disses that I love, love, love. And the characters, which I go online and I see all the people really being rough on Yorick and Hero as far as likable characters. The show, it's slow rolling, but I think they are bringing out some of the positives that I liked about the character Yorick from the show. So I'm staying 8 out of 10, and I'm going to focus, hopefully, on the positive, and not my thought that we're at episode 7. We're 70% done. Let's cook.
I believe I already told you how much I actually finally agree with you.
All right.
And so that's why I brought this one down.
Listeners, we always love to say, who cares what we think? We want to know what you think. Write to us on social media at Double PHQ. That's the word double, the single letter P for podcast, HQ for headquarters, at Double PHQ on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.com/Double PHQ, at least until Zuckerberg gets upset and takes his toys home. please write to us and let us know how you are feeling about this show 70% of the way through.
I love it.
And we always have listeners, we see the stats, who listen to this years from now. So we're recording this on October 11th, 2021. If you're listening to this, next year in 2022, in 2023, in 2024, please reach out to us on @PHQ. We want to hear from you. It's not just for right now. We love feedback, and we got some more feedback this week.
Wow. 2024, huh? I don't think we're going to make it that long. And I'm talking about as a world.
Okay.
All right. So feedback we got from OKEG or OKEG.
Yep.
They said, appreciate the commentary from you two soulless Hollywood elites. Hey, I take that personally. I'm not elite.
Okay, so the other part you are is what you're saying.
Absolutely. 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Right. What's the antithesis of elite? We're soulless Hollywood bottom feeders, right?
Yeah.
But hey, thank you. We hope you're enjoying our quite silly commentary. We also got this feedback from Kaylin Baby, who wrote, just discovered your podcast. Really like the TV show, Why the Last Man. I'm sticking to it, and you have a new subscriber. Thank you so much, Kaylin Baby. We love it.
Awesome. We'll take it.
Now, if you dislike our commentary and you want to unsubscribe in anger, what do you have to do first, Catfish?
First, you must subscribe before you unsubscribe.
Right. When we say things that, you groan at, you dislike, you disagree with, we don't want you to unsubscribe. We don't want you to stop listening. We are flexible. We say your opinion matters, not ours. But if you are going to unsubscribe, you got to subscribe first.
Take me under the hood here. What's the philosophy for getting people to subscribe? Does it still count even if they unsubscribe at some point? Why are you so desperate to get them to subscribe even if they're going to unsubscribe later?
Well, there is bizarre things. In our podcasting career, we used to beg for reviews. We did. And then we found out that iTunes says, yeah, reviews are okay, but we really give suggestions based on the number of subscribers. So I'm like, oh, curses. All these years we've been pitching for reviews, and we should have been pitching for subscribers. So the down low that our listeners will never know is we're begging them to subscribe, and then when they're angry, forget about unsubscribing. Like they'll be like, I'll unsubscribe. Okay. Oh, whoops, I forgot.
Okay, got it. So what you're not saying is, if you're angry, don't go subscribe and unsubscribe. Subscribe now.
Right.
And when you get angry later, hopefully you'll get over it before you unsubscribe. Okay, now I totally understand.
That's the way I am with everybody I'm in, any sort of relationship with. I'm like, they'll get over it.
All right, thanks for taking me under the hood. You know who else is over it?
Who?
Beth. All right, never mind. Yes. I don't want to jump ahead.
Beth.
It's so good.
Bothersome Beth. Hey, Catfish, before we get into this episode, there are a couple of things I think we need to talk about here in October of 2021.
Tell me.
There is a movie trailer that just got released, and the movie trailer is entitled, or the movie is titled, I should say, The 355. Wait a minute, what?
Oh, excellent. So it's basically an appreciation movie about Why the Last Man.
I love it.
Very nice, timely.
Catfish, can you believe this? I saw a movie called The 355, and I was like, wait a minute, hold up. I did what we love to call here on the podcast Wikipedia-level research. So we went to Wikipedia and was like, what's going on here? So, Catfish, I read Why the Last Man. I found out about this wonderful character, Agent 355, and the culprit ring, not knowing that this is kind of based on history or a historical legend. Did you?
I had no idea either. I figured it was either copyright infringement or something. It was based on actually something real when I saw this movie was coming out. Very strange. I wonder, as far as the development, did the people behind the movie The 355 also never believe that Why the Last Man would make it to screen? No. Because we've been waiting 10 years for this, and maybe they just thought, F it, it's not going to happen. But you know what?
What?
It is happening.
It is
now
happening.
We got 2 Agent 355s.
Okay, so this is the Wikipedia history on this. Agent 355 died sometime after the year 1780. And this was a code name, obviously. 355 was the code name of a female spy during the American Revolutionary War. And this spy was part of the culprit ring.
Wait, there was really a culprit ring too?
Can you believe this? Agent 355 was one of the first spies for the U.S. of A. How about that?
That's pretty impressive.
And the number 355 is pretty much the culprit ring's decrypted form of the word lady.
It's not Betsy Ross.
They do not believe it's Betsy Ross. There's some people in history, they believe who it was, and so they say maybe it was Robert Townsend's common-law wife. Maybe it was a woman who had connections to that traitor Benedict Arnold. And so possibly it was Anna Strong, who was a neighbor of Abraham Woolhall. I don't want to get too deep into the history of all this, but obviously during the American Revolutionary War, they needed spies. We had people on the British side, people living here in America on the British side, and on the, hey, let's form our own countryside. And so this is crazy. This is history that I should have learned, but did not learn until I saw that movie trailer.
Wait, so does this mean that the other female agent that 355 met, that what does her name translate to?
Other lady.
Other lady. Perfect. That makes complete sense.
Was it 554?
I can't even remember now.
Pull out your Culper Ring Decoder Ring, listeners, and check it out. So, hey, if you're like us, who somehow, close to 17 years ago read this wonderful Why the Last Man comic and didn't really go any deeper into this, even though they may have actually mentioned this in the comic, because the comic was always kind of referencing things. That's our bit of Wikipedia level history for right now. Catfish, there's one other topic that I thought you and I could discuss before we dive into this episode. Vulture, the online entertainment critique site, released an article entitled Binge versus Weekly Release. Do streaming release strategies... We've been talking about this
for a while.
Do streaming release strategies even matter? So this was an article which really focuses on two other shows. It focuses on the new hot, very popular right now Netflix show entitled Squid Game, and the other Hulu show that we're actually podcasting about, Only Murders in the Building. Now, Squid Game has gotten really hot. It's really popular, and it was one of the Netflix releases where it's all released at once, Binge. And
Bubba, I don't even know what happened here, because it came out, I watched the trailer, I'm like, oh, this is completely for me. I even got Ms. Catfish to watch it. It's not her kind of stuff. And we're like, oh, yeah, we got to watch more. And then came out to see you, blah, blah, blah. And in the meantime, we haven't watched any more. But Squid Games has gone absolutely crazy. It is in the zeitgeist. Everybody's talking about Squid Games. A friend of mine asked me about it, who lives in Nashville. There's all this talk about how translated subtitles are losing a lot of the nuance for Squid Games. But specifically because of Squid Games, I now have an opinion on this that I didn't have before.
Oh, let's hear it.
The talk about it is super hot right now, and then I think it's going to die down in like 2 or 3 weeks. Yep. Why? Because anybody who is interested in it after hearing about everything is going to watch it in 2 or 3 weeks. Let's compare that with The Watchmen when it came out on HBO, where it slowly built, and week by week, the buzz started growing. More and more people started watching it, and because more and more people were watching it at the same time, it had a buzz that maintained. And I feel like it's the same thing kind of with Succession. Now I'm talking about two different HBO shows, but since they're the ones that do this, it's that same kind of thing where it builds and people have a shared commonality when discussing about it because nobody's ahead of anybody else. Like if I wanted to talk to you about Squid Games, we'd either both have to have seen the whole thing or both be on the same exact episode. And that's not true for these shows that release on a weekly basis.
Okay, well, let's get to it. What this article argues is that Squid Game, because it was released all at once, and because it's a series with what they describe as a complicated storyline and kind of sensational twists and things like that, being able to get through a serialized plot is a lot easier to do when you don't have to wait a week between episodes, where they were referring to the show we're also podcasting about, Hulu's Only Murders in the Building, which is a weekly release. They said, well, hey, that's a slow build, the murder mystery question. If you had people who knew, quote unquote, the answer to the murder mystery of Only Murders in the Building, it would be wrong. So by a weekly release, it is built up and done very well. What I thought was interesting is the article said that it thought releasing Why the Last Man week to week is hurting the show build at buzz. So what do you think? Do you think Why the Last Man would be better if they had dumped it all at once like Squid Game? Or is it better in this case where it's a weekly thing like Only Murders in the Building? What do you think?
Wow, that's interesting. Because things like this where I feel like for us, the things we've been talking about, your double C constant complaint, is that these kind of things wouldn't bother us so much if we just kind of went on to the next.
Exactly right.
But also kind of loses its importance when you binge everything. It all kind of melds together, I feel like, and you don't get the chances for certain things to hit you and stay with you.
Right. Well, the one thing I was thinking about is that, and just to slightly reference my constant complaint again, even though I tried to not talk about it too much, is this was episode 7. And I know I shouldn't compare, they're different types of stories, but I thought back to Game of Thrones, which was the show that Catfish, you and I first started podcasting about, where we built this, what's the antithesis of Empire from? But anyway, on Game of Thrones, the first season, episode 7, this is a spoiler alert, listeners. If you don't want to know about what happens in Game of Thrones, the first season, episode 7, skip ahead. But by episode 7, a contender to the throne across the narrow sea had been killed with gold on his head. And in episode 7, the main king was dead. They were cooking with gas by the point they got to episode 7. This show, not only are the Barners not up yet, here 70% of the way through, but with Beth, they're introducing yet another story, almost the starting point of another story, right? I don't know. I'm beginning to think that this Vulture article is correct, and that for Why the Last Man, in this case, they should have dumped them all at once. I don't know. That's just my thought.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, what is your feelings about, are you watching Foundation?
With both Squid Game and Foundation, I've officially watched the first episode.
All right.
So I need to go further with both. But did you have a point about that in case our listeners are watching Foundation?
Well, I'm just wondering because the thing that is, if you're talking about kind of a dense storyline, it feels like Foundation is a denser storyline.
Amen.
Than,
very dense.
Only Murders in the Building, for example. I mean, it's a murder mystery, so of course there's a lot of things going on, but it's not that dense of a storyline.
No. Okay, well, hey, listeners, if you want to get in on us, we just had this mini sidetrack on binge versus weekly release. Once again, write to us at double PHQ, the word double, the single letter P, HQ for headquarters. All right, hey, Catfish.
Yeah, talk to me.
We always love to talk about this show. Certainly has kind of areas of focus. This week we had Ohio, and we had the things happening in D.C. Which do you want to touch on first?
I always like to take care of D.C. first, although this time, for me, there was a lot more crackling in D.C. I found that more interesting than what was happening with our terrific trio, which was a first for me as far as this season goes.
Okay, do you want to? Now, in D.C., there are almost two focuses here. We've got the Republican revolt, meaning Regina, Kimberly, and former First Lady Marla and their storyline. Or do you want to get into this weird story about Beth showing up and Beth's betrayal? Which do you want to talk about first?
Let's get into Beth's betrayal because, as you said, this is kind of a fascinating mystery. Where was Beth? And it was this a long con by Beth?
Yeah. No, that's Catfish, what I kind of think. So let's just talk about the story points real quick.
All right, let's do it, yeah.
The President Brown is outside on a Hummer with the bullhorn giving the speech about, hey, we're going to build it back better. And when who shows up, this hooded, mysterious figure, I thought, just seeing the hooded figure, I thought, is this Hero? Is this somebody else? It had to be somebody we knew, I assumed, but I never could have guessed it was Beth. Beth somehow gets to the front, gets the president's attention. President Brown lets Beth in. Here we go. She's shown up here. This is crazy. What did you think when you saw Beth?
Bubba, I'm just going to tell on myself right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Like you said, we are in week 7 of this show.
Right.
And she showed up and I was like, who the hell is this? I was like, seriously, Bubba. Maybe I missed her saying Beth or something. Something happened where I was like, why is this woman important? What's she doing here? So I just got to say, Bubba, I just missed it. And clearly it was my fault.
Yeah, you're not like Yorick at all. Yorick sees Beth everywhere. You actually see Beth and you're like, who's this? New hoodie. Who did?
How did she? She's obviously very important. Beth's storyline was just very complex the whole way through because It was rather easy for her to get in because it sounds like they are riding at the gates and lighting people on fire, the whole thing, and they're just like, oh yeah, let her in. It's going to be fine.
Now Beth comes in. She has finally a moment to be alone with President Brown. She even gets a shower, and she says things like, Yorick proposed to me. I said no, but I still love him. And in hindsight, she's implying that she should have said yes. This is definitely what President Brown wants to hear. President Brown is almost treating her like the daughter that she has in Hero. And the first question I have while all this is going on is that Beth says that she went towards Yorick's apartment, but she couldn't go in. And I hear that and I think, didn't Yorick paint signs all across New York City? And you would think, especially in his neighborhood, about, hey, I'm still alive, come find me. Did Beth see him? Do you think this new betraying Beth saw him, Catfish? What do you think happened there?
I don't know. This is the whole thing is puzzling and mysterious to me. What was she really trying to get this information for? But she does seem very calm and almost unemotional with the First Lady to me.
Right. In the first thing in the episode that struck me as kind of a, what? Was when the president gets called to what I call the situation room. It might be the briefing, Pentagon briefing room, the military room, the war room. But Beth is like, hey, can I come? And it's like, wait a minute, what? And the president's like, sure. And so I knew it was odd at the time, but I didn't think anything about it. In hindsight, I should have been paying attention to Beth's questions. Beth, was asking questions. Do all these people live here? How come these people seem calm? And then, oh no, somebody tells Beth, yeah, the secret security is at a quarter capacity. Beth, can someone get in? And it's only in hindsight that I realize, oh no, oh my goodness, if we don't have enough trouble already, what is Beth tied up in? And so the storyline ends. She, gets her shower. She doesn't want to stay, which is another kind of odd thing. But at the time, you don't think anything about it. But
I'd think a lot about it at the time. I'm like, why would you want to go? And she gives some BS story about go and live off of the land and stuff. And I'm just like, you got to be effing kidding me. This makes zero sense.
But then, okay, well, let's just get to the end of Beth's story. She leaves the Pentagon, and she goes and gets in a car. And call me crazy, is Beth a terrorist? What's going on?
I mean, this was the question I asked earlier, though. Is this the long con? Was Beth only involved with Yorick because of his attachment to his mom, who was nowhere near the seat of power, by the way, when all this went down?
Let's get real close to this unnamed senator.
So how what is exactly, which faction is Beth a part of? And is it a new faction? There's a lot of moving pieces here. And like you said, this one just got put on the board. Wow. There's a lot going on. I mean, I think, it's funny, again, we always reference Game of Thrones. It was a very beloved show that had a very complicated storyline with lots of characters.
Right.
And I think some people have taken lessons away from that, and one of those lessons is, instead of showing all 12 of your storylines at the beginning and having people fight to keep up, it's kind of introduce other storylines later.
Well, what I thought, this is a bit of my own comic thought, is I think of a character on Game of Thrones. If you haven't watched the show, his name's Uncle Benjen. He literally disappears at the end of the third episode, meaning he goes and disappears, or he goes out on a mission, and then people are like, well, wait, his horse is back. Where did he go? And spoiler alert, you may or may not see him, but if you do see him again, it is seasons away from when you saw him. And I thought, okay, we saw Beth, and we won't see her again for years. I thought they're confident enough, to put Beth on the shelf as we deal with the current stories. But no, I just read it as what it looked like to me. Beth is part of the evil group that's trying to throw down the government, or I assume evil. We really haven't spent any time to learn their perspective. But the idea of these people rioting at the gates when they should be, hopefully rebuilding society, I don't have a good feeling about Beth at all. And I'm so glad that Yorick is totally over her and not obsessed. Oh, wait. Oh.
What this show is really hitting on, which the post situation, that's what I'll call it, the post disaster, the post whatever world here.
Right.
It feels like there's a different thing happening in the comics than is happening in the show, and I think the show is more interesting for it. In the comics, it's just almost everything is falling apart, and there's kind of these wild bands of people. But in the show, you know, although they're still kind of wilder bands of people, like, people really think that the government did this to them.
Yeah.
And they're angry at the government.
Without question. Yeah, it's a new twist. It's funny, Catfish, now I'm obsessed with you talking about the formatting of Game of Thrones. If you want to know the really smart formatting of Game of Thrones, it's actually true of Y the Last Man in the comic as well. Y the Last Man, it's set up of Yorick wants to find Beth. And, you know, the story could take a million side tangents, but it really wasn't going to end until Yorick and Beth wound up back together. Game of Thrones, that was the other smart thing. The first season sets up, okay, there's these woman with dragons who wants the crown, and there's these monsters to the north. You could go on a million side tangents, and the audience would know, well, the story really isn't going to end until the dragons and the monsters get dealt with, right? And so it's smart in that some TV shows, like even The Walking Dead, they just kind of exist. You know, it's like living in the zombie apocalypse, and some new problem may come up, but there's not like an end final moment you know is going to happen. In Y the Last Man comic, you knew that Yorick had to find Beth. That was one of his main goals. The story couldn't end till then. And Game of Thrones couldn't end until the dragons and the monsters could be dealt with. If they want to end the show after 2 seasons, okay, dragons and monsters, deal with them. Or if they want to end it after 8 seasons, okay, well, we'll hold them off until that point. And so I guess the only thing I really didn't like about it is that I want things cooking, and this is just a new ingredient. Like you said, a new piece on the board that hasn't had time to build up to anything, and I'm ready for fireworks to go off.
All right. Well, I mean, to me, it feels like it's even though Yorick kept talking about it in the book, that was the complication to try and get him to focus on the real task at hand, which is figuring out what's going on with this situation.
Yeah,
and I'm glad
you didn't read the book. That makes no sense.
Listen, we all know what matters now. It may have taken until episode 7, but now we know that the real important thing is we need to reunite Yorick with Kimberly so they can start the new race.
Well, let's get to the Republican revolt storyline in D.C.
I love it.
The military squad, I want to call them military squad, the Marines, I wasn't sure what this group was. They're back and they're reporting to the president, either Regina or President Brown, whichever one, but they're reporting to the presidents, plural, about the mission to capture 355. And President Brown, you know, I love her, Diane Lane, great actress, great performance, but sometimes she does a terrible job of throwing people off the scent. She is not good. She's not good. This isn't the way you get people to focus on something else, to just dismiss it. You've got to kind of lead them to something else, and she's not doing it too well. What did you think of President Brown's subterfuge?
Subterfuge? Oh my God! I mean, she's practically waving at herself. Something's going on over here, and I know about it. She's just not good at it. She is horrible.
Wait.
Very bad, no good liar and obfuscator.
No, and that's odd for a politician, right?
Exactly. You'd think maybe this is why she was like 37th in line to become the president, because she just wasn't a good enough liar.
I love this line she says when she's going out to give that speech on the Humvee. She says, "Do I look okay? Not okay, but not too polished." She knows how she has to present herself in this situation after the mass death of all these Y chromosome creatures. So she's got her issue, and she's obviously meeting up with Beth. And then we focus on Kimberly, Regina, and my new favorite person, Marla, the former First Lady. This trio is great. They didn't have enough time together. This is just brilliant. Kimberly's complaining about moths in the Pentagon. She's collecting pillows for her new friend, Christine. Regina and she discuss what they learned from the reports about, hey, there was a man with a monkey on his shoulder, and that wakes up the former First Lady from her stupor. Ruh-roh, it is odd. It is coming home. I love it.
Are you sure that when they said a man with a monkey on his shoulder that she wasn't thinking about Klinger? Oh, it's a MASH joke. Did you get the MASH joke? Because he was a hairy dude. Oh, my God.
Man, okay. Yeah, see, I'm too young. I would only get after MASH references.
Oh, okay. What was the one where he's in the hospital and he lived in the RV outside the hospital?
Trapper John,
my
MD.
God. Trapper John, MD.
Okay.
Holy cow, that's also still too old.
Okay,
all right.
So the one thing I love is this, our former First Lady, Marla, she has a great point. When she comes into President Brown there in the war room, situation room, whatever you want to call it, and she says, "You made me think I was crazy." She's got a great point. Now, however you feel about Kimberly or Regina, Marla here has really done nothing wrong. She's done nothing wrong. And for her to get treated like this is kind of cold.
I feel like they are crazy.
Wait, who's
you
crazy?
You said Regina and Kimberly. You said no matter what I think about them, I think they're crazy.
Oh, okay. All right.
Much crazier than the former First Lady.
Now, okay, but do you think this isn't cool what President Brown did to Marla, though? Making her think, oh, I was sleepwalking, I was dreaming, I'm losing it. Because that's what she did. That's what she in 355 did, Catfish.
Well, isn't that better than the alternative, giving her a medal?
I forgot that was the only alternative. How could I?
She awarded herself a medal by the end of the episode.
Okay, so can we give it up for Kimberly? Last week you were saying, oh, Regina Oliver's the real bit of trouble we needed. No, Kimberly's here. She's not going to let should-be President Regina Oliver out-crazy her. I love it. Listen, she's going crazy. This building is filled with atheists. Oh, my God. Regina tries to come back with something just as crazy. I wish I still had my show. Oh, man, this is awesome, awesome stuff.
Now, listen, why can't she have her show? She should be able to broadcast. What if she's able to broadcast and say, like, hey, I'm the actual president and I'm not being allowed to be president?
Oh, that would be good. / bad for society, good for the show. Oh, I love it.
Oh, man, and then we find out that Yorick is a beta boy who does magic tricks, and then Kimberly, in a very disturbing and lascivious fashion, says, Yorick is the future. Woof.
Now, Catfish, we know how we feel about Regina and Kimberly as characters. But let's, just like I gave it up to Marla, she was treated poorly. Kimberly, I think, is right. Don't you? You do need a man. That's the only way to rebuild. Yorick is the future. Kimberly, who I've been celebrating for weeks, Kimberly is correct. Yes or no?
Okay, well, they need to figure out what happened. I mean, I don't know. Well, there's something I've always assumed, and I'm just wondering whether you assume the same thing.
Okay.
Is that just because Yorick's alive doesn't mean that if he reproduces or if they use his semen or whatever, that other males will still be alive too, that those children will live. And, we've got a bigger problem too with biodiversity. Yorick is not going to help bring back steers. But so what I'm saying is you have to figure out what's going on with him and rectify that. You just can't use him as the seed for the future. You've got to figure out what's special about him that caused him not to die after finding out what caused it.
That's exactly right. But so far, Catfish, it's so funny. You always mention this every show about, hey, what caused this? What caused this?
Right.
The show really hasn't seemed especially focused on what caused this. Do you think? Because it doesn't feel that way to me.
Well, I always go back to President Brown's thing, which is, we can maybe figure that out, but the most important thing right now is to try to come back to a sense of normality, and obviously that is not happening in any way, shape, or form.
No,
and
I
guess, now that we've got Yorick, she's figuring that part of it is being handled. This is the kind of thing, when they say the cover-up is worse than the crime, the fact that she hid Yorick from everybody is what's really going to cause her downfall, not the fact that Yorick lived.
I think that is exactly correct. Now, can I ask you a question? When did you know that the former First Lady, Marla, would be the former First Lady? When did you know that was going to happen?
Once you start watching MASH episodes on a loop.
Oh, no.
It's not good for the psyche.
No, not at all. But
there's only so much you can take of Alan Alda's wisecracking before you lose the will to live.
Right. For me, it was, after a couple episodes. So let me say that just as I keep saying, okay, let's get to it, it felt like about 37 minutes. I tried to look at the little countdown timer, and I was like 37 minutes into the episode. I'm like, okay, she gone. And then you have to wait only probably 15 more minutes, but it's still, the show doesn't need to make me wait. Like, throw her off the roof. Let's go.
Damn, that is cold.
You still excited about DC? You said that you liked it more than the trio this week. You still excited to see where this kettle is, maybe at episode 10, going to blow up and blow?
In kind of a strange way.
Yeah.
I think that it would be more important what's happening in DC if it felt like they were actually accomplishing anything.
Oh,
and we're not seeing anything being really accomplished. So in other words, it's like, this is almost like, you got a bunch of kids in a club, in a little clubhouse, and it's very insular, and so it doesn't matter who's in charge of that clubhouse. They're not affecting anything outside. So maybe if it felt like that a change in who was in charge would materially affect the recovery of the world, of the United States at least, that would mean something. But right now, it doesn't seem like it would mean anything. This is just a power struggle to do nothing, to be in charge of nothing.
That is a great point, Catfish, because we assume, but the show has got to show us, because it's there's always show versus tell. We're not even really being told, hey, these great things are these great accomplishments that President Brown is doing is keeping the world in some sort of order. So that's a great point. Speaking of great, let's go to our trio.
Yeah.
Hey, 355 is boosting a camper, and Yorick and Dr. Mann haven't apologized somehow yet, and they're debating if they should apologize. What do you think? Do you agree with Yorick? They should come up and apologize? Or are you Dr. Mann? If you're not sorry, why the hell apologize?
Is Dr. Mann not sorry? It feels like they should be sorry.
She said she wasn't sorry. I mean, Dr. Mann is really crazy. Remember how last week she was as they were shuffling off to Buffalo on their own, she suddenly went, wait, maybe I'm making the wrong decision. And then this week she's like, I'm not sorry. Dang, Dr. Mann, pick a side.
You know what I love? I love Dr. Mann is so awesome because she just is the way she is. She doesn't. I'm not going to say it's not that she's a psychopath or anything like that. She doesn't care about other people's feelings, but like she's going to say what she feels, and she's not going to sugarcoat it.
Love it.
She's awesome. Yorick, I think, is, he can say all he want about apologizing, right? It seems to me like his theory in life is don't ask for permission, just apologize afterwards. That is always his MO.
Well, of course.
He's never like, should I ask about doing this?
Nah.
Should I get some feedback? No. You know why?
What?
I'm a man, so I know these things.
Oh, brother.
And I'll just get an apology.
Here we go. That's terrible. Now, you're making a generalization about men. 355 gets behind the wheel, and the next thing she knows, she wrecks the car into a tree. So, okay, Catfish, this was one of my things I remembered from the comic, and I always liked this section of the comic. So, welcome to Ohio. Yorick gets double S. Sleep stripped. And here we are in a brand new situation. We can't have them always running from people chasing them. So they do need to, on this journey, have new experiences. And I really like this one. Here they are in Ohio. Now, two of our heroes get thrown in a cell, but Yorick gets to go to a picnic. I mean, this is great.
You know what? I'll say this. It's interesting. There really a lot in this show focusing on, we see with the group, what I like to call the Double K.
Double K?
Yeah, Costco killers. Oh. Where they're having the group about men,
right,
etc. And so maybe they decided not to do that here, but this, in the comic, this section is where they're really focused on a lot of the women who had been in the prison, had been abused by men, etc. So they kind of didn't accentuate that in this section as much as they did in the comics. But again, we had it already. But I did feel a little bit more in the comics, a little bit more sympathetic to these women. It felt like it came a little bit later, but it couldn't have. But what was nice was, at least in the comics, was this was the first, even in the comics, like, you didn't get a sense of normalcy in the White House.
Right.
I mean, the White House or the Pentagon, it's crazy, but there's a lot of people, and we saw the kids running around. So this was the first, like, time in the comic where it was really just like, take a breath. Like, it's pastoral. There's power. There's food. There's a community of caring people. Mm-hmm. Even though I said we didn't get enough action in this one, I felt like that was kind of set up a little bit more in the comics than it was here. We get a little bit of taste of them, and then we don't. It's when 355 and Dr. Mann wake up, and then all of a sudden where they're like, they're the ones who say like, oh, these women were all in prison. We could be in some serious trouble.
Yeah, who make assumptions about the women here at this town. That's exactly right.
Right. I mean, we know that they can do the two most important K things that a woman can do.
I'm really worried about this, but sure, what are those?
Kill and cook.
Oh, brother. There we go. Now, this is, as Yorick describes it, utopia, but with hostages. The people who are part of this community say, we got men here. We see you, Yorick. We're not impressed. And then this character, Sonia, she first says, Yorick, we stripped you off. And then said, it was just me. But it was no great honor. Oh, ice cold. Zing, Sonia. Nice.
Zing,
not nice.
Zing, zing, zing.
But, of course, you brought it up earlier. There's this assumption that 355 always sees every problem as a nail, and she's going to hammer it. And so she's taking off her shoestrings, ready to choke somebody out so she could get out of this prison and continue on with her mission. Heck yeah.
Oh, man, I love it. I mean, and the most important thing is that she actually ends up using those shoestrings on the right person.
No. She's got a bit of a shoestring on the brain. I mean, she cut off those army people's shoestrings last week. This week, she's grabbing shoestrings. Find a new object, 355, let's do this. But Sonia, I believe, is the one who says, we'll let you go. We'll get you to a doctor. If you want to be driven out of town, we can do this. And because she has the opinion, maybe hell isn't other people. I love that. I love that line. It's so good. But 355... when she was passed out, she had another one of her kind of vision dreams. And I assume she dreamed back to when she was a child, and it looked like her family passed away in a car accident, doesn't it?
Well, then maybe she should be more careful when getting in cars. That's all I have to say.
She was tired. She needs some good drugs to keep her up.
I mean, you go through all the trouble siphoning the gas. That doesn't taste good. We all know that doesn't taste good. And she gets it all set up. They unpack the whole thing. And then she decides to drive when she's too tired. People, focus.
This is why Tesla's creating those auto drives. But hey,
holy cow.
She still doesn't trust anybody, even after they've helped her with her possible concussion. What's the one thing she says to Yorick before she goes to bed? She tells him, keep your mouth shut. Don't trust anybody, especially around her. Yorick, like his mom, is not the best at subterfuge. Her? Which one do you mean? Which one could it possibly be? This one who seems up for a Hoe-Down and Chill?
Hoe-Down and Chill. Very nice.
It's almost like our heroes have found a place they can hang out for a bit. And we're certainly going to be here next week, don't you think? In this little idyllic post-prison community?
Yeah, we will indeed. And I'm just crossing my fingers, hoping it stays idyllic.
Are Sonia and Yorick going to have a Hoe-Down and Chill?
I won't. I don't think so. I think he's going to stay faithful to Beth.
Does he know what Beth is up to?
No, he does. He doesn't know what Beth is up to.
No, he probably never knew what Beth was up to.
Never. It's clearly obvious to me. Just the fact that she was going to go down under with all those prisoners in Australia shows me that she doesn't have her. Well, I thought you told me we didn't have any downloads from Australia.
Okay, we'll be fine, I'm sure.
Okay, we're safe. We're safe.
Hey, that's this episode 7. Listeners, we've told you what we think. We want to know what you think. We can say it until we're blue in the face, until we're tied up in a prison with shoestring. At PHQ on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.com/PHQ. Catfish, we have another brilliant segment from our buddy Double M.
Double M?
Matt Murdick on the music in this week's episode. But before that, we got to give out our weekly awards. What's up first?
Oh, first is our Whoa Man of the episode.
Okay.
Oh, it is the baddest ass woman of the episode. 355 early was dominating this category.
Oh, really?
Finally, I gave it to Dr. Mann, and then I gave it to... I can't remember who I gave it to last week. This week, I have to give it Dr. Mann, where they're talking, the three of them.
Yep.
And just the moment you just referenced when Yorick's like, what are you talking about? And Dr. Mann says, at least one of us will die ignorant.
Oh.
Dr. Mann, you almost got my woman of the episode. Of course, it has to go to 355. She tries to kill Yorick with a car accident and then a shoelace. For that, she's my #hero. Woman of the episode.
But she didn't succeed in either thing.
Listen,
hold on. You're pointing out Dr. Mann saying at least one of us will die ignorant. Yorick was correct. They weren't going to kill them. So he was right, not Dr. Mann. I call complete anarchy on your woman of the episode.
Let's just face it. Whenever Yorick dies, he will die ignorant.
Oh,
so she's right about that, whether it's now or 50 years in the future. Look, you can't always succeed, but it's important to try. So for trying to kill Yorick twice tonight, I give it to 355. Okay, so Bubba, obviously that was the correct answer. Well, tell me what the good runner-up is, a.k.a. what your answer was.
No, my answer requires you to be #ice cold.
Oh, ice cold.
We have done so many podcasts where we titled the podcast Ice Cold based on the ice cold disses. And so who was giving out the best ice cold disses this week?
Who was it?
The Triple F, former First Lady Marla, who first to her daughter, if you even shed half a tear, your boys would have to split it. Ice cold. And then when her daughter Kimberly says, I'm going to see my boys again. Marla, yeah, when you're dead. Oh, cold. But then she doesn't just give it to her own family members. Hell yeah. She gives it to the president. She's like, you tried to make me think I was insane. Why you weren't even a good mother. Oh,
damn. Everybody knows she was a bad mom. Holy cow.
So as you can see, I am correct. Actress Paris Jefferson as Marla, the former First Lady. My whoa man of the episode. She was great.
Love it.
R.I.P. Marla, you dissed them well. And now let's go to Alas Yorick. I knew him, sorta. The ways in which Catfish and I are like or not like Yorick from this episode. Catfish, what do you got this week?
Well, Bubba, sadly, this week it's ways in which I'm like Yorick. I also wonder whether I should apologize, and when I do, I'm not good at it.
Oh, boy, say that again. Yep.
Sorry.
Okay, so, hey, my Alas Yorick, I knew him, sorta, for this week is like Yorick. When I tell people things and I think they're jokes, people respond, jokes are funny. That is just not nice. Not nice at all.
Ouch. Ouch.
Well, what time is it now, Catfish?
It's Double M Matt Murdick music analysis time. He's going to tell us about music from this week's episode.
Okay, so we heard some themes that we've heard before, which is great. There's some musical continuity there. There's one theme that showed up that we hadn't heard in a while, and I'm talking about this one. We also had its variation that we've discussed before as well. This. Now, a couple of instances where we heard this theme and its variation was surrounding the former First Lady, when she came storming into the war room, so to speak, after she realized that Yorick was alive. And before, we had talked about conceptually how this particular theme relates to personal loss. There's also been a large number of occurrences where it has occurred around members of the Brown family. So if you want to look at it from a character aspect, Jennifer's there as well. But when we hear it in this particular scene, the focus is really on Kimberly's mother's loss. How she's lost so much. And, of course, she's angry that Jennifer has not lost as much as she's lost. It occurs again with a slight variation where the triplet version, and you even hear a little bit of the variation. Let me play that again. When Kimberly is talking to her mom, we hear this with its variation as the loss gets sunk in even deeper for Kimberly's mom. The whole idea of Lynchburg being non-existent anymore, basically, because of the dam bursting. So once again, that sense of loss is reinforced. Also take the time to think about how the variation is used as opposed to just the straight theme. When we first heard the straight theme, it was when Jennifer's husband, separated husband, was telling her he wanted a divorce. We heard the variation after Yorick had been looking for Beth for some time and then saw that picture of him at the bar. So as the emotions get stronger, the variation appears. There's a musical theory that we can ponder for a minute or two and see how it bears out as the rest of the season goes on. The variation appears when the emotion gets intensified for someone. We'll see just how wrong, likely, that I am as the rest of the season plays out. By the way, I don't normally comment on the show stuff. I usually leave that, of course, to Bubba and Catfish, but man, that ending was very powerful and disturbing, and if you are someone who is struggling, as many people are these days, please use that information that was given at the end of the show. We want you here. We want you subscribed. We want you participating. You are important to us. And I suppose to help us all smile a little more, rather than me being all dark and serious all of the time, we'd better get back to Bubba and Catfish.
There you go. Matt is always adding some seriousness to our seriously silly discussions. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks for bringing some professionalism to the podcast, Matt.
Catfish, we also, our final award we give out every week is the Suspect of the Week. We don't know why every creature with a Y chromosome on Earth died. We think the episodes are pointing, each episode is giving us hints to a suspect of who did it. Who is your suspect of the week?
Bubba,
yeah.
You know, this week I can only conclude, based on the events of this week's episode, that it's Kimberly.
Kimberly, my favorite character?
She's always, it seems like she's always had the hots for Yorick, and that is, it is her plan, a.k.a. God's plan, for them to get together so that he can quote-unquote, seed the population. Starting with Kimberly.
Oh, man. One-on-one, I want to play that game tonight.
All right, Bubba, so that's obviously the correct answer. But who is your suspect of the week?
Well, to me, it's kind of a group of people the show pointed a finger at and said, who would benefit the most from every Y creature on Earth dying? Female prisoners. The only way they were going to get out of prison is for all their captors to die.
Well, and for one of those captors to just barely be able to open the gate before they died.
You know what? Chicken or egg. It's all good. Who knows which came first? The female prisoners, they're my suspects of the week.
I love it. I love it.
Catfish, next week, we're going to be 80% of the way to the end of season 1 with episode 8, entitled Ready, period, Aim, period, Fire, period.
Whoa.
Yeah, those are 3 things in episode 8. Tensions at the price max spiral out of control. Hero and Sam pass the point of no return. Nora uncovers dangerous secrets. Ooh, I love it. I love it.
Whoa.
Listen, when things spiral out of control, that's all I've been waiting for. Get on that spiral. Let's do it.
I thought you were saying then you know that Yorick is in control.
Well, I was going to say tensions at the Price Max spiral out of control. It's Black Friday in the show. Got to get those discount HD TVs.
Find him, touch him, win.
Hey, that's it for us. My name's Bubba. You can find me on Twitter at FitandTrim. That's FITTENTRIM at FitandTrim on Twitter.
And I am CJGman67, your 67th CJGman on Twitter. Remember to hit up the main mothership at double PHQ. That's the word double, and then the letters PHQ. And we will talk to you on next week's episode of
Z, the podcast you watch after the podcast you listen to after you've seen
Why the Last Man.
And then you watch it again.
And listen. And then you play the episode.
Man, I was supposed to do something with the subscribe button. I've totally forgotten what.
Mash it.